Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, Justin Trudeau shuffled his cabinet today, but pressure is still mounting on him to resign. NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh has now added to that, saying his caucus will vote to bring the government down next year. Now, this is after months of Singh wavering on that question. What do you think of this latest blow for Trudeau? What does it mean for the next election? Call us on the open line. And we'll get you the latest on how holiday travel is going today from YVR, plus last-minute Christmas gifts for gardeners with Brian Minter. I'm Michelle Elliott. Welcome to BC Today. Now, this is part of Jagmeet Singh's letter posted today on social media. The Liberals don't deserve another chance. That's why the NDP will vote to bring this government down and give Canadians a chance to vote for a government who will work for them. No matter who is leading the Liberal Party, this government's time is up. We will put forward a clear motion of non-confidence in the next sitting of the House of Commons. Now, this comes as Justin Trudeau adds new MPs to cabinet in a shuffle just this morning. All of it adding to a tumultuous week for the Liberals, kicked off by the sudden resignation of Chrystia Freeland from cabinet. Well, we're asking you, what do you think of the NDP leader saying he'll introduce a non-confidence motion to bring down the Liberal government next year? And what does this mean for the next election? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. And you can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining me now is Lydia Miljan, Professor of Political Science at the University of Windsor. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Michelle.
Things don't slow down just ahead of the holidays, do they?
No, it's like it's been an exhausting week, and this day is ending anytime soon.
I don't think so. What do you make of this latest development? How do you see that language in Jagmeet Singh's letter?
Well, this is the first time we've seen something as strong from Mr. Singh. I mean, up until now, he's ripped up agreements. He's said all sorts of disparaging things about the government, but always fallen short of actually saying he would vote no confidence. He's always just said all options on the table, but
Right.
then when push to shove, every time he votes along with the government. So this has been the clearest indication that not only will he be willing to vote, but also put together a vote of non-confidence against the Prime Minister, but also against the government in general. I think that's even clearer. He said it doesn't matter who the leader is. They're done with the Liberals. And I think that is, as I said, the strongest we've seen so far.
Okay, I'll ask you what that could all mean once Parliament resumes. But what do you think changed? Because you're right, he's kind of sidestepped this question of whether he would vote non-confidence, saying all options on the table, but not being clear. So what do you think has changed seemingly overnight?
Yeah, clearly overnight. I think he's heard a lot from his constituents. I think he's also heard from his own caucus. I mean, there's been some mixed messages going on, so he's had members of his caucus go on the record saying they'd vote non-confidence, yet he refuses to say so when asked directly by journalists. And I think that the pressure is also building on him. Let's remember, they're not in a very strong place either politically or financially. So they didn't have a real appetite for an election right now. And I don't even know if the soonest possibility would be as soon as they resume back in the House of Commons. It might be more likely going to March or even into April where he'd actually have that motion. So he's giving himself a little bit of time and trying to build up some political capital with his constituents to say that, yeah, I'm going to be the tough guy. I'm going to be the one that's going to fight both the Liberals and the Conservatives. But I think really it's a last-ditch effort on his part to do that, given that I think the rest of the country has already moved on to that conclusion.
So does this actually add anything to the pressure on Justin Trudeau right now? The polling, the number of Liberal MPs who have already been calling for him to resign ahead of the next election. What does this add to that conversation?
Well, I think he was probably going that direction. I didn't think so at the beginning of the week. I thought he was going to delay and say, certainly Mr. Singh words gave a lot of room for the Prime Minister to delay, to not make any decisions till after the holidays. But this has really ramped up the speed to which they have to act. But now he's in a really difficult position, Mr. Trudeau is, because really the time for him to resign would have been last February. By waiting this long, he has put the party in huge peril because they have rules about how leadership races go. And their internal constitution says you can't actually start the leadership race until 28 days after the leader resigns, right? So we don't even have that. And then, how do you put together a leadership race in the wake of a non-confidence vote that may or may not happen when Parliament resumes? So they've got to figure out, do they prorogue? Does he resign and stay on? Do they have an interim leader? So the machinations and just the logistics of pulling this off have become that more difficult. And then there's the question of who wants that job given the state of the Liberal Party right now.
And when you say the time to resign would have been February, why that time?
Well, because had he gone in February, he could have had a graceful exit. He could have had all the accolades and all the tributes about how he was wonderful. He brought in all these programs. He brought the party back from nothing, and now he's leaving the party in great hands. All the wonderful things that you can say. But he also would have allowed for a good transition to the next leader and allowed that next leader to put their stamp on the party, to put together a campaign team, and to have time to launch a federal election campaign. But what we're here now is against a clock. That essentially we're going to have an election sooner rather than later. It could be triggered quicker than we imagine, given what Mr. Poilievre has said in the last half an hour. But not even with that, even with a spring election, that gives the new leader no time at all, right? Because you got to think about it. There's got to be a leadership race, presumably, unless they appoint somebody, which again, that just means that they're going to concede defeat already. And so to have a leadership race, and then on top of that, to have an election campaign right after that, it almost as if they're setting up themselves for their own demise. And I think back to 1993 when Mr. Mulroney waited to the last possible moment to resign, and with great fanfare, they brought in Kim Campbell, and she was the one that was blamed for their atrocious, loss in that election, going down to 2 seats. But really, the blame should have been put on Mr. Mulroney for waiting so long, given how unpopular he was at that time.
Does it remind you a little bit of what's happened in the United States?
There was a bit of that too, and again, if you think about, we had this conversation. People have been talking about this back in the summer. When people are saying we should dump Biden, and remember that obviously different context, different situations for why people lost faith in their system. But they brought in a new face. They didn't have a race. She was untested in terms of a campaigner, because previously she had run for, I'm talking about Kamala Harris, she had run for the presidential nomination, and she was just sort of appointed this time. And they had a pretty good campaign. From all accounts, they were sparking joy and all these wonderful words. But at the end of the day, she didn't have time to put her own stamp on policy, and she really didn't have time that they normally have as a candidate to really work the American people and to really convince them that she was the face of the new party. And now they're faced with a extremely strong president who's got the Congress, who's got Senate, who's got the executive, and we find ourselves in the same situation here in Canada, where Pierre Poilievre is. I just looked at several polls this morning, and he is sweeping every region except for Quebec, every demographic in terms of age, gender, visible minority status. I mean, he is winning on all those metrics, and so he's got a long way to go down. And given the vacuum within the Liberals, we're looking at a pretty big majority government if all things stay the same.
Now, before I go to calls, we have a lot of people lined up now. Lydia, you brought up Pierre Poilievre. In the last half hour, he spoke to reporters, and he also published online on social media this letter he's written to Governor General Mary Simon. It says in part, "The chaos cannot continue. That is why I'm asking you to use your authority to inform the Prime Minister that he must either dissolve Parliament and call an election, or reconvene Parliament on the earliest day that is not a statutory holiday before the end of the calendar year, to prove to you and to Canadians he has the confidence of the House to continue as Prime Minister." So what are the possibilities there then in light of this step from Poilievre?
Yeah, I think he's really throwing down the gauntlet. He's essentially saying, well, now that we've heard from Mr. Singh and that he's ready to vote non-confidence, you cannot just accept the Prime Minister walking into your office saying he wants to prorogue and have time to select a new leader. He's really putting pressure now on the Governor General not to accept that request and to, in fact, ask the Prime Minister to get the vote and to see whether or not he has the confidence of the House. The extent to which she'll take his advice over that of the Prime Minister's is unclear, but it is within her power to do so. But that does put a lot more pressure on Mr. Trudeau about what his next moves are. It's going to make it much more difficult for Mr. Trudeau to go to the Governor General and prorogue. And I think that's the play here. He's trying to force the Prime Minister to actually stay on, because I think that's his preference. He would rather fight against Mr. Trudeau because he knows he's so unpopular and just get an election over with as soon as possible. And so that might force it. It's hard to say whether or not that would force the matter, but it would make it much more difficult for him to resign, actually, and given the logistics, unless. Yeah, it just makes it tough, right? Because if there's pressure on the Governor General not to prorogue, then where do you have the government then? What all they can do is sit around and wait for a vote of non-confidence.
A lot of unclear things right now.
I know. There's a lot of mental math you've got to do here.
That's so true. Yes. If X equals Y, yeah.
Yeah, like the beginning of the week, we were playing chess, and I think now we're playing Jenga. It's like it's a house of cards.
That's right. Dominoes. Lydia Miljan is my guest, professor of political science at the University of Windsor. Very glad to have her with us. Asking you, in light of now a couple of big news stories this morning, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau shuffling his cabinet. Those ministers also spoke to reporters this morning, so we'll have some of that tape for you. At the same time, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh now saying in a letter forcefully that he and his caucus would vote to bring down the Trudeau government. And the first opportunity would be at the end of January next year. But as we just heard, that may not come. It may not even happen until March. So we're asking you, in light of all of that, what do you make of this move from the NDP, and what does it mean for the next election? Our numbers, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Catherine is our first caller from Chemainus. Hi, Catherine.
Hi. Yes, I think he should resign. He should step down.
Trudeau should, okay.
He let Freeland go. She's a super smart woman, very good with the economy. And then he had a bunch of MPs walk out. I mean, it's chaos.
Okay, or you mean
go away?
Okay, and why do you say that? What do you make of what Jagmeet Singh has said today then?
Oh, I think Jagmeet is absolutely right. I wish Jagmeet would run himself, because I love the NDP. Of course, all BCers do, I think.
Okay, and so you're saying, sorry, he should run for
Justin Trudeau's job.
Okay, like for the Liberal. Okay.
He's a smart man. He's a lawyer. He can handle anything that comes up, and he would work for Canadians.
Okay, Catherine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the call. And Chris is next in Cranbrook. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead. What do you think of this move, the step from Jagmeet Singh that we've seen today, and what does it mean for the next election? What does that all mean for the next election?
Well, I think that Mr. Singh was a little bit slow on doing this. He should have done it 2 weeks ago. Okay, when there's a little bit of a kerfuffle there, and now Miss Freeland left. Okay, but I think that they should have leadership. Trudeau should resign.
And you're saying that would
leadership,
be okay,
and then election. And Chrystia Freeland would be the next Prime Minister. Look at her portfolios that she's had. Okay?
Okay. Now, what, Chris, I'll just put this to you. What you'll hear from Pierre Poilievre is that she has played a big hand in this government, right? With regard to the budget, and so anything that you pin on Justin Trudeau's leadership would also be something she would be accountable for, right?
Well, that's true at a point, okay? But okay, let's turn the other side of the coin. Why did she quit? Right?
Well, she says because she was asked to.
She just got fed up.
Fed up. Okay. Chris, thank you so much for the call. Perry is next in Pemberton. Hi, Perry.
Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. Go ahead. What do you make of this move from Jagmeet Singh today?
Well, I think Jagmeet is just as tired of Trudeau as everybody else is. And I mean, I'm totally ready for a conservative government to swap over and do its little tax reform and a little less baloney. I'd like to just see everybody on the left just sort of take a break.
Okay, so you're waiting for an election and planning. Okay, we'll see what happens next, Perry. Thank you very much. And Billy is next in Port Moody now. Thanks for calling in, Billy. What do you make of the latest in the goings on in Ottawa?
Well, I think it's about time Jagmeet took the reins by the horn, or the horn by the reins, whichever way you want to look at it. I turned a senior after working 30-some-odd years, and I'm trying to live on $1,300 a month, and my wife brings in $800 on her pension. Anybody out there in government or whatever that can show me how to do that, I'd be more than helpful to want to see how it's done. I think we need a change, definitely. I followed Trudeau's dad when he was in power. And, he wouldn't be doing what Trudeau's doing. He'd be getting out if things were a little rough, even though he was a little arrogant and tough at times. But, it's time the seniors put their back to the wall and said we had enough. All this stuff that went on during the pandemic with losing lives and everything was terrible. The nurses overworked. All these things, they've got to stop. Okay. The economy's got to get rolling, and the seniors are the backbone of the economy.
Thank you very much for the call. And Ron and Sanet, you're a final caller on this. Go ahead.
Jagmeet Singh, the Trudeau Liberals have not won the right to continue in power. The Liberals 3 years ago, you may remember, voted against both dental care and pharmacare. And it wasn't until the NDP was a balance of power and forced them to act on behalf of over 7 million people who need dental care and pharmacare. Okay. So, Jagmeet Singh is right. Trudeau is wrong. Trudeau should go, in my opinion.
Ron, thank you for the call. Let's go back to our guest here. And Lydia Miljan joins me, Professor of Political Science at the University of Windsor. Lots of opinions there, of course. Now, this morning, the ministers who are now in cabinet or remain in cabinet spoke to reporters, and, they were asked by the CBC's Ashley Burke why they feel that Justin Trudeau deserves their support, that them being in cabinet would presume to mean that they support Trudeau as Prime Minister and remaining as Prime Minister. And Anita Anand remains Minister of Transport, adds internal trade to her portfolio. She said that the government needs a Team Canada approach, that they need to work together and show unity in the face of threats of tariffs from U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. How does this chaos in Ottawa this week impact that show of unity?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, obviously they're going to put on a strong and a brave face to all of this. But, I guess you've got a feel for them. Some of them is the first time they've been in cabinet, and it should be a wonderful day for them. They finally, climbed the greasy pole. But boy, it came at a huge cost. And let's face it, it's going to be a short-lived portfolio. I think they're going to barely be able to unpack a box before they're sent out to the hustings. I mean, I can tell you quite frankly, I'm not going to spend a lot of mental energy trying to remember any of their names, simply because I don't think they're going to be around after the next election. So, what else are they going to say? They're obviously they can't be honest with Canadians and say our caucus is in disarray. People are resigning right, left, and center. Chrystia Freeland threw a bomb into our party and we don't know if we're ever going to recover it. No, they've got to say, we're happy to be here and we serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister and we're ready to stick together and do a great job. But, they obviously have to know that things are not looking good for the government right now.
What will you be spending mental energy on? What will you be watching?
Well, I guess it is, how are they going to get themselves out of this? How are they going to figure out either a leadership race or an interim leader? Again, it's so unusual, right? So even if he were to resign today and they chose an interim leader, that's actually pretty untenable because we've never had an interim prime minister who wasn't voted on by anybody. So that would be shocking. So they've just got a lot of logistics to work out. They've either got to change their constitution, figure out how to do a truncated leadership race, which is not impossible. I mean, we've done this in Ontario. I don't know if all your listeners are aware of what happened when Doug Ford became leader of the Progressive Conservatives. I mean, they were in opposition at the time, but they had a different leader for that election. It was Patrick Brown. His career imploded overnight, and they did a 6-week campaign, and Doug Ford not only won that leadership race, but then went on to become premier. So it's not impossible to have leadership. It's just of what the Liberal Party constitution allows them to do and whether or not they can be nimble enough to make some changes so they can get their house in order. And they've got to do it within pretty much like 6 weeks. That'd be the max time that they would have if they were to put in an elected leader as the interim prime minister. And then they'd have to figure out a way how they could get through a parliamentary session without having a vote of non-confidence before a budget.
Lydia, great to speak with you today. Thank you very much for taking us through all the pieces in this right now.
My pleasure. Nice speaking with you.
Nice speaking with you. Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Lydia Miljan is professor of political science at the University of Windsor. It is 12:27 now. This is BC Today. And it is the busiest travel time today at YVR. This is the busiest day for the winter season. CBC reporter Pinky Wong is at Vancouver Airport right now. Hi, Pinky.
Hi, Michelle.
Okay, can you describe how busy it is today?
So it's starting to get more busy here. You can see more people behind me. And today it's a day where YVL described as the busiest day during the Christmas time. They're expecting some 80,000 travelers going in and out of the airport today. Some 9,000 more, they say, compared to the same time last year.
What do people need to know if they have a flight out over the next few days?
Yeah, so it is reminded that they come here early as it is the busiest time during the Christmas holiday. For those who are flying domestically, 2 to 3 hours before their flight time, and those internationally, 3 to 4 hours before their flight time. They're also reminded to check online about the latest flight status, and most importantly, do not forget their passports.
Okay, and Pinky, finally, there are more than 200 janitors on strike, and we're told they're not disrupting passengers from getting to their gates or other workers from their jobs, but they are striking and withdrawing services. Are you seeing any signs of that at the airport?
So yeah, the janitors are now outside of the airport near the International Arrival Hall. So it's around 250 of them walking off their job today. But here at the airport near the departure, I do see some janitors cleaning around the food court area. YFL did say that there shouldn't be noticeable impact for travelers because there are staff working at operational levels.
Pinky, thank you very much. That's CBC reporter Pinky Wong. Just about 12:30 now. This is BC Today. I'm Michelle Elliott. You're with BC Today. We're live on CBC Radio 1, on CBC Television, and live streaming on CBC News BC. I'm Michelle Elliott. Thanks so much for joining us. And coming up in our next half hour, Brian Mincher is here. He's going to bring some holiday cheer and some tips for last-minute gardening gifts. That's coming up after this CBC News update.
Good afternoon. Former BC Premier Glenn Clark is returning to the public eye. He has been named chair of BC Hydro. Clark left his high-profile position as president of Jim Pattison Group 2 years ago. He takes over for Laurie Wanamaker, whose term ends December 31st. A proposed high-speed rail line connecting Vancouver to other cities in the Pacific Northwest is gaining momentum. The U.S. government announced yesterday it will pledge close to $50 million towards route planning, identification of capital projects, and public outreach. So far, BC has spent $900,000 on the project, which would link Vancouver with Portland and Seattle. And SkyTrain has a brand new station. Capstan Station opened this morning following a ceremony and ribbon cutting. The Richmond station is the 17th on the Canada line. And now the BC forecast on the north coast. Periods of rain this afternoon with some strong winds and a high of 10. Highs to minus 16 and mainly sunny in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, periods of light snow with a high of minus 2. Highs to 3 degrees and cloudy in the West Kootenay. A bit of sunshine in the East Kootenay. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, a few showers with a high of 4. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, periods of rain this afternoon with highs around 11. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
That's Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. Lots of emails coming in on our discussion around Ottawa and the latest in federal politics with today NDP leader Jagmeet Singh saying he and his caucus would vote non-confidence and try to bring the Trudeau government down. This as Justin Trudeau shuffled his cabinet today. Lots of emails coming in. Nathan writes, Trudeau is just as recalcitrant as President-elect Donald Trump. He's just not as abrasive. It's also my belief Trudeau will, in spite of all the cues from everyone, will continue to lead the Liberal Party into an election and will lose to the Conservatives. Norman writes, I believe Mr. Singh knows that if there is an election soon, the NDP almost by default will become the official opposition, and to wait until Trudeau is inevitably replaced, possibly by a far more publicly appealing Liberal leader, would mean the NDP continuing in third or fourth place. Brent writes, let's hope the agreements for dental care and pharmacare are done with 5 or 10-year binding contracts, so the Conservatives will have a hard time eliminating them. No, Mr. Singh becoming the official opposition leader will not give you as much power as holding the balance of power, and never cared. And thank you very much for that email. Kathy writes as well, the Liberals are a mess despite some good policies. The NDP don't give me the impression of strength, and the Conservatives, well, they just seem to rely on cutesy slogans and personal attacks. Mr. Poilievre is certainly poised to win an election, but unless he can do a 180 and actually govern, then I fear for Canada. With chaos and trash talk reigning, while we need the politicking to stop and good government to present a strong, united front. Thank you for your emails. bctoday@cbc.ca. (12:33) now. This is BC Today, and if you are regretting, listen to this, leafing your Christmas shopping to the last minute, fear not. Brian Minter is here with some ideas for gifts for the gardeners in your life. And of course, he's taking your questions. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. You can also email bctoday@cbc.ca. And Brian joins me now from Minter Country Gardens in Country Garden Limited in Chilliwack. Hi there, Brian.
Hey, Michelle. Wonderful to talk to you. By the way, you guys did such an amazing job 2 weeks ago at the food bank. Just so proud of all of you for what you've done. So, and all the CBC listeners who participated so amazingly well, too. Yeah.
So incredibly generous. And I'll get you that our latest total I've just heard from Ann Penman is $1,876,521 raised for Food Banks BC. So incredibly generous of our audience.
It was. And as always, we've just got the greatest audience at CBC. No question about that. So
true.
anyway, Michelle, getting close to Christmas, you're right. A lot of people are just still wondering. But for the gardener in your life, just like to point out a few things that I think might really be very appreciated. First of all, because of our weather changing patterns, as a lot of the greenhouse industry, we're going undercover. So even cold frames is a wonderful gift to get things started earlier, or small greenhouses or bigger greenhouses. Lots of great manufacturers in British Columbia, and but that is something that would be so much appreciated. Believe me, when you're looking for places to put things in the wintertime, it works great.
Yeah.
One of the key things you have a greenhouse, or if not even a garden, a maximum minimum thermometers. In other words, they'll go high during the daytime, and it'll let you know how hot it was. But more importantly, at night, how cold the temperatures did become. For those of us who are in frost areas, it's nice to be able to know that. So that's always a treasure gift. It works year round and really not that expensive. And for folks, gardeners are workers. They're always out there doing stuff, which is great. But sometimes a garden bench, and with a lot of the new outdoor furniture that's weatherproof and so on, maybe it's not a bench, but relax a bit more. Some outdoor furniture to sit and enjoy your garden right in the garden.
Oh, how nice.
Is a great thing. It's been a while because the Swiss-made Felco shears and pruning time is coming up, and we're going to talk about that in January. But having a really good quality pair of shears, and by when you do have a pair, don't lend it to anybody. Okay, that's one gold rule. But the Felco shears, the Swiss-made ones, are back in most garden stores right now, and it's such a wonderful pair of shears to have. They last a lifetime. They really do. And, if we have many wonderful gardens. Van Dusen, of course, is one. Butcher Gardens over in the island, and, the Natobi Gardens in UBC Botanical Garden. A lot of great gardens in BC. Passes for those gardens would be really something they would enjoy, and even get better take them. And speaking of that, one of the best garden shows in America, second largest, the Seattle Flower and Garden Show. So many British Columbians from all over the province go down to be able to see that show. It's in late February, in the 19th of February, but what a wonderful gift to be able to have to look forward to that. It's really an outstanding one. Any garden books and magazines, always new ones out there, but garden magazines people love to page through those, which is great. And at this time of year, winter flowers are kind of cool. Anything that's flowering now, the Camellia Yuletide, for example, the hummingbirds will love that right at the moment here. And so many of the hellebores, the beautiful Christmas roses, so we call them, are in flower right now. We have a honeysuckle that is very, very hardy to zone 5. It's flowering right now as well. But it would only get better each year. So picking up something that's winter flowering is really appreciated. And roses, lots of new ones coming out next year, like really a lot of new ones. But one of the most interesting, Michelle, is an edible rose. Bred in Bosnia.
Wow.
They are, and they're called the Flavorette series. One is sort of a pear. It's called Paired. Another is a honey coated one. But in the culinary world, these are making an absolute smash because of their wonderful flavors. So you can enjoy the fragrance, you can enjoy the color, and you can eat the darn thing as well.
You can feel it, exactly. You can feel like you're at a fancy restaurant.
Yeah, pretty much every day in your home. And the last thing is, there's so many other ones, but where they hang out and like garden shop and so on, a gift card from one of the garden shops or places they really enjoy going is always a really last. And so these are all pretty much last minute things you can do. So for the guys in particular, I know we're all bad at this, but there's some suggestions that I hope will help and really be appreciated.
They sound great. They sound like first minute gifts, not last minute gifts.
That's right. Yeah, good point. Right? Yeah.
Really good choices. Brian Minter was with me, our BC Today gardening columnist, with some great ideas for anytime holiday gifts for the gardeners in your life, or the people who like to eat fancy Michelin restaurant food. You can call in with your questions for Brian, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can email as well, bctoday@cbc.ca. Shirley is calling us from Surrey. Hi, Shirley.
Hello.
Thanks,
Hi,
Mary.
Shirley.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. What's your question for Brian?
Oh, hello, Brian. My daughter
Hi.
bought me some beautiful hydrangeas, not this year, but the previous year. One was a beautiful blue one, and the other one was a beautiful white one. And then last winter, she said, well, let's try and hold them over, which I did. And I was so excited in the spring when I saw the green coming up. So this summer, they did grow. The blue one only had 2 small blossoms, but they were pink, and the white one had no blossoms at all. Now, again, this year for Mother's Day and my birthday, she bought me 2 beautiful pink hydrangeas.
Oh.
And I was just wondering, is it worth the effort to hold them over, or are they not going to bloom again?
Now, Shirley, that's a great question. Thank you. But are you keeping them in containers on a patio, or are you planting them in the garden? What are you
Yes.
doing with them right now? Are you planting them in the garden?
No, I'm on a balcony in an apartment building, so they're on my balcony.
Okay, you can see the buds right now. The difficulty is making sure that over the summertime, the buds usually develop from late August into September. That's when the buds develop. And if you look at the plant right now, you can actually see in each tip of the branch if there's going to be buds there. So you'll know whether it's going to bloom or not. So that's really the issue. And like last year, we got extremely cold weather. So if it was not covered or protected a wee bit, you may have lost a few blossoms in the cold. But anyway, if you got blossoms right now, that's good. And if we do happen to get the forecast looks pretty good right now. It is into January. But essentially, if you do get a cold spell, protect the blossoms, wrap them with insulate or some material that's going to protect them during the cold. And then they're just going to, once we get through the cold, they'll evolve and they will begin to open up which color. Now, they mentioned the white doesn't change color, so the white is always white. The blues, of course, if it was a blue one, probably didn't get enough aluminum sulfate. You can buy small packets of aluminum sulfate, put that on your blue hydrangea, and that will actually make them a much more beautiful blue. Takes a little while for that to happen. So at this point here, if you've got buds, you're in luck. Don't forget they will need some feed. Once you get into late winter, going into the early part of spring, feed them with a well-balanced fertilizer, and everything should be absolutely looking great for you.
Well, thank you very much for the advice. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for
Shirley.
the call, Shirley. And you're very lucky with the kinds of gifts that you're getting. Charles is up next now in Port Alberni with a question about a lilac tree. Oh, I think we've lost our connection with Charles. Apologies, Charles. If you're going to call us back, it's 604-669-3733 and 1-800-825-5950. If you want to email us as well, it's bctoday@cbc.ca. And what are the things that you talked, Brian, about, the changing climate? What are some of the challenges people are having right now then?
Yeah, I think the number one is being aware that even though we're having, like last year, incredibly mild winter, the sudden turnaround of cold, coming down with a cold front. So just being aware of that, having everything ready to be able to do that final mulching and protection, getting your containers looked after. That's certainly at this time of year number one. But the other thing, Michelle, is we're getting longer periods of very hot, dry weather in the summer. It's getting into 3, 4, 5 weeks. It's when you're looking at your new types of plants you want to put in your garden, especially with the annuals and perennials, look at the more drought-tolerant varieties. I think that's going to be a reality we're going to be facing for a long time.
Yes.
So plants that are hardier, maybe try and go a zone colder than that we actually live in. It's a good thing when you're purchasing plants, but also look at the drought tolerance. And there's been lots of information now on drought tolerance. And the other thing too, I think we're all concerned about pollinators. So whatever you do pick up, make sure that it's a pollinator plant as well. That's with our younger generation. I so appreciate their thoughtfulness in that, but that's becoming one of the really big things that they're so cold, hard on, drought tolerant, pollinator. There's a little box we tick with every plant to make sure they do more than just one thing.
Yes.
So that's what I would take a look at.
Multitaskers. So that's what we're looking for. Ian is up next at Qualicum Bay with a question for Brian Minter. Hi, Ian. Go ahead, please.
I got a waterfall Japanese maple, and on the main on the main stalk and where all the branches come out, there's some orange fungus in little dots, little orange dots all around.
Yep.
I've seen fungus on firewood, but not in little dots.
Yeah, that can happen. I mean, any living plants can be affected. I mean, fungus from basically any type of blight or any type of mildew. There's all kinds of fungus that attack plants. Usually, when you find fungus on the wood, it means the plant is dying back or having some problems. But in most cases, Ian, I would just simply scrape it off with my hand, get it cleaned up. But the plant seems healthy, right? The waterfall Japanese maples are absolutely beautiful and very vigorous as well. But the plant's doing okay, right?
Yes, it is. It's odd. I was wondering if that made a big deal.
Yeah, no. And the one thing about Japanese maples, that they're not happy about too many fungicides going on. So I would just take a look at it and scrape it off by hand, and you should be absolutely fine. We had so many in our gardens for years, Japanese maples, and this happened on a regular basis, and no big deal. So yeah, honestly, Ian, I wouldn't worry about it, honestly.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. That's great news.
Okay.
Good stuff.
Thank
good
you.
stuff. Happy to deliver the happy news, the good news to you just ahead of the holidays, Ian. Thank you for the call. Our numbers again, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. We're on with Brian Minter, who's taking your questions on all things gardening, as he does every couple of weeks here on the show. And Monica is our next caller now from Victoria. Hi, Monica.
Hi there. How are you?
Just fine. Thanks for calling. You have a question about a palm tree.
Yes, I do. It's a small palm that I bought at a grocery store a couple of years ago, and I potted it into a ceramic pot, and it's been sitting on my deck, but it has this growth coming out of the base of it. It's very spiky, very many spiky, spindly growths, very dark green, and I don't know if that's part of the palm tree or whether it's some kind of abnormal, or what I should do with it. Should I remove it, or what is it?
Yeah, okay, Monica. No, this is an outdoor palm, so you're hoping to leave it out on the deck all winter?
I think I will try and take it into my greenhouse before long.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I would do that as soon as possible. Now, depending on the type of palm, and there's so many different ones, you'll often get growth coming up like that, and it actually, it's a seed spike. Many of them will throw up this unusual bit of growth, and once it gets going, they'll actually throw out a cluster of like small flowers, which become actually seed pods. So that just might be what's happening. But as with many plants, you'll find that all of a sudden you'll get a different type of growth coming out. That's not too unusual. I would leave it as it is and just sort of watch it as it grows and so on. But I have a suspicion on a palm that it's a seed spike developing at the early stages.
Okay, well, it's overtaken the pot, and the palm itself is quite short. It has been struggling, but it's only got 4 little small palm branches on it, and this thing is larger than life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Monica, we've always have a pair of shears in hand. If it's taking over the palm and really destroying the look and the beauty of the palm, why don't you just cut it out? It won't cause any problem whatsoever. Sure, that's what I would do. Okay.
All right. Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks, Monica.
Thanks for the call, Monica. Ike is calling us now in Victoria as well. And Ike, go ahead. You have a question about berry bushes in your yard.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
My question is, my backyard is covered with wood chips and mulch to keep back weeds, and I have blueberries, thornless blackberries, red and white currants, gummy berries, and a bunch of other berries I've lost track of. But for whatever reason, this summer I had little to no fruit at all. Is there anything I could do, or you can suggest for me to improve on that for next year?
Yeah, the plants are growing okay. The plants were doing fine. They just weren't producing a lot of fruit.
Yeah, they were big, bushy plants, but no fruit.
Good. Okay.
But not enough fruit for my kids to enjoy.
Okay. What are you feeding them now? Big question.
Water, and I forgot what the blend I used. I think it was a 10-10-10 blend for.
Sure.
for
Yeah.
fertilizer.
Okay, then thanks for doing that. But let's tip the scales just a wee bit in the odds that we always recommend in this program, kind of an organic fertilizer, which really is it's 40% organic, to be honest, but it's 10, 15, 19. And what it does is puts the plant's energy with the high phosphorus in the middle and the high potash working together. It really encourages the plants to be far more productive in terms of producing fruit. So something like a 10, 15, 19, shift the balance to higher phosphorus and potash, and that will make an immediate difference for you. Remember, only put it on when the leaves start to grow, when you see them coming along. If the plants are healthy, you're doing everything else right, but we just have to shift the emphasis in getting more fruit. And virtually everything you mentioned will, sometimes it's a pruning issue, but I think, Ike, you know exactly what you're doing. So the only difference is fertilizer, and I would do it twice. I would do it probably in March, and I'd probably do it again in July. And that will, I honestly, make a huge difference for you.
Ike, thank you so much. Thanks for the call. I have a question here. I want to get to one of our email questions. Ashley is writing, very curious as to whether or not sweetgrass grows on Vancouver Island.
As a native, it's more of a prairie Eastern Canada one for sweetgrass. It's a First Nations plant, which, they really do appreciate in so many of their ceremonies. Very, very hardy as well. But to my knowledge, because we grow it as well for some of our First Nations folks, no, as a native plant, it's Eastern and the prairie provinces in terms of where it's native.
Ashley, thank you for that. That reminds me of that book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Monique Gray Smith. Thank you for that question. Judy is our next caller in Richmond now. Hi, Judy. Judy, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, hello. And you have a seasonal question for Brian.
I do, Brian, and good day to you. Nice to hear you.
Hi.
We are absolutely committed to live Christmas trees. It's so hard to let go of that concept.
Sure.
Even when we lived in the Caribbean, my husband went off into the high hills and bought back a pine. Scrabbly it was, but it was Christmas. So, but we think we just don't want to go and kill another tree.
Okay.
And I don't like plastic artificial. I'd very much like to buy something in a pot, like the trees in a pot, but one that would be able to be brought in, decorated it gently, and then taken back out. And what should I be looking for?
Yeah. The most common being grown by growers in British Columbia, one in particular who grows, smaller 4 or 5 foot trees in containers. My favorite is the Omarika spruce. It's a Serbian spruce, beautiful bluish color. It's not the sharp needles on it, but it grows beautifully and makes a wonderful tree in our yards. The other more common one is the Norway spruce. That is the European Christmas tree, and very even, dark green leaves on it. It's very, very nice. A new favorite of mine, though, is a white spruce called North Pole or Montrose Charm. It has 2 different names, but I love this tree because it stays a little more compact in terms of how it grows. It doesn't get quite as large. But those are 3 easy to grow plants that do pretty much through most of British Columbia and make great garden plants. And of course, every time you do this, and I love the fact that you're doing this because it's a great home for birds as well as they get along, which we need more, more of those around. Yeah. So the Montrose Charm.
Okay, but we can bring that in to decorate and be in and then out? How do we do that? Just bit by bit?
Yeah, because they're mild weather right now, you don't really have to do a lot in terms of they're happy to just come right inside. And remember, about 10 days max in terms of being indoors, because our temperatures indoors are high. They dry out and dehydrate very quickly. So about 10 days inside, then back out in the porch, get it rehydrated very quickly. And because most of them, and never buy one that's dug and put in a pot, buy one that's grown in a pot because they adapt to indoors and going back out so much more easily.
Okay.
Judy.
What was the first name you said? Omariko?
Yeah, Omarika. Omarika is how it's pronounced. Yes, the Serbian spruce. Yeah.
Serbian spruce. Judy, thank you very much. It is the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to Christmas trees. Really great question. Cameron is our last caller today from Agassiz. Hi, Cameron. You have a hot
Hi, how are
topic.
you?
Good, good. Thanks for calling in. You have a hot topic for us.
Well, yeah, I love the jalapeno plants. I have about half a dozen of them in raised garden beds. And then over the last few weeks, we brought them into our garage to overwinter them because I heard you can do this. And I would love to get a head start on them in the new year, but I'm not 100% sure how to care for them overwintering them.
Yeah, our first gift suggestion for gardeners was a greenhouse. If you can get a greenhouse and afford to keep it heated, that's the big thing. No, they want to be as cool as you possibly can. That's really a secret, not the 10, 15, 20-degree heat we have indoors. So run them, I would say, maybe 10, 15 degrees would be optimum if it's going to be inside, right beside a window, and keep them just moist. Don't overwater them, and as much light. If you can put supplementary lighting on for them, like you can buy grow lights, which will really help as well. But yeah, what you're going to do is keep it going. And the jalapenos are one of the most popular peppers today. They take a little bit longer to mature, but not too much. Like some of the hot peppers are very, very long, times before they're going to be mature. But I would say if you start the seed in February, you're going to be great. If you want to collect seed from the plant because they're easy to do, or just get some jalapeno seed from one of the many wonderful seed suppliers we have. But so that's what I would do. But keep it cool and just moist and lots of light, and they'll maybe do well for quite some time.
Okay, so you're not really aiming for like a semi-dormancy kind of thing. It's more
no. Keep them vegetative. Yeah, that's a very good point. Keep them vegetative and keep them growing because they will hang in there. Absolutely.
Aha, powerful stuff, Cameron. Thank you so much. Take care. That's Cameron in Agassiz. I just want to mention this great email from Sylvia. Another suggestion for a Christmas present for gardeners, a membership to a local gardening club. An entire year of local knowledge with speakers like Brian Minter. Even a plant sale or two. So there you go. Yeah, great idea. A very, very happy holidays to you. It's been such a wonderful year as always working with you, Brian.
Well, Michelle, we love doing this, obviously, and love our listeners. They're so supportive. You should see the mail and emails we get, and I really love that. But next year, because there's a trend coming out next year. The garden media looks at some of the trends, and you're going to knock your socks off in terms of what's coming up in 2025. So stay tuned. We got some fun things for you for 2025.
I love it. A teaser for the new year. Sure. Brian, happy holidays to you and yours, okay? Take care.
You too, Michelle. Thank you.
Brian Minter joining us from Chilliwack.